I wonder if Kanye is really thinking that I became a Christian so God can do all this stuff through me.
By the way, I found out that you know what he put on the front of that shirt?
We know that God will usually test a person's faith. Shortly after Kanye got saved,
Ruslan.
What you make of Kanye and this entire debacle? We were having an offline conversation. Not sure how much you want to share online about what we was having offline. Interesting place he's in, to say the least, in terms of there being something there that happened spiritually with Jesus as King. I went personally, and I would say in the people he platformed.
Yeah.
Like the people he platformed and the way he deplatformed himself in the Jesus is King run showed me something happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't speak on anybody's salvation with the certainty or not certainty, but something happened. And then he tried to run for president, then he got divorced, and then he, you know what I mean, dined the two, and all this, just a complete mess that's been happening. But it seems like it's all coming undone within the last like 2 weeks. It's been really bad.
It's been really bad, yeah. From the White Lives Matter stuff.
The White Lives Matter stuff, which, by the way, I found out that you know what he put on the front of that shirt?
Wasn't it the Pope or something?
It was the Pope that apologized for all the atrocities of the Catholic Church in the year 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean? So like, there's so many little things here that he, he's dealing with. And so you had an interesting take on the whole Ye situation. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, so the thing with Kanye, right? So we talked about this a little bit. I think as believers, right, there are really three ways we evaluate is someone a Christian. And one of the three we can't really tell unless we're there with them at their dying moment. So the three ways we evaluate is someone really a Christian is one, profession of faith. Romans 10:9 and 10, right? But then there's Jesus, if you love me, obey my commandments, right? So then there's obedience, right? So we have this category. You judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. They don't seem like they're walking with the Lord based on that. So we have profession of faith. We have obedience, right? And then we have persevere to the end, right? He who conquers to the end will be saved. We can't forget that language. I feel like believers forget that language a lot. And so we turn it into, especially if they're famous, he who professes to believe, we give them an exuberant amount of grace because we want people who are famous to be saved, because I think deep down inside it validates our faith more than we need it to be, right?
Sure. So you said the top one is profession of faith.
Profession of faith.
The second one is
obedience.
Obedience, and the third one is
persevere to the end. They die a believer, right?
They die a believer. Okay.
So in evaluating Kanye, in terms of number three, I have no idea because I probably will not be there when he takes his last breath. I'm sure. Right? Evaluating number one, okay, he made a profession of faith. He made a
clear profession of faith.
Profession of faith, and there was some fruit initially, right? But evaluating number two, I have real serious concerns, right? And
in terms of him continuing to produce fruit right now.
Because it's so me and you talked about should he be back on his meds, right? Is it a medical issue? And I think, okay, there's some truth. I think there's something there with that. But my concern, I think, is deeper because, like, when you look at, like, the parable of the sower, right, Mark 4, you got one seed lands on the rock. It sprouts up really quickly, right? But then it withers and dies, okay? You know, when Kanye got saved, we were excited. We were excited, not because of, oh, it validates our faith, but, hey, this is God. It's saving people at this, and we were amazed by that. Now, we know that God will usually test a person's faith. Shortly after Kanye got saved and put out Jesus is King, we're doing Sunday service, he lost his wife. And in a very public situation. You know, I mean, the guy's sending him text messages, I'm in bed with your wife. He gets his children tattooed on his, you're right? So it's a really public situation. And then a bunch of other stuff starts happening, and then all of a sudden, we see Kanye returning back to, in many ways, the form prior to Jesus as King, right? Because he was saying,
he's saying he's going to go back, take all the cussing out of his music,
all of it,
redo it all of it, and re-release it all. And that was crazy. Because he was doing live versions of some of those old songs,
and taking them out
in the short window he actually performed at Sunday service. It wasn't long. It was like a 20-minute set. He was doing clean versions of all those songs,
which I'm grateful for that. But here's my issue with Kanye. I genuinely believe that while there's part medication, I think Kanye has said this, I'm paraphrasing, I think he genuinely believes that God is calling him to do some stuff that no one else can do in the world.
Wow.
Kanye has made these types of statements.
Yep.
That God is calling him to do all this stuff, right? And I think his Christianity may have been in light of thinking that God is going to use him to change the world, rather than I really believe this. And now I think what he did was, what he tends to do is say, I like to be able to shake up the world. I like being able to do that and be out there and do. So I'm not, when I see him now and the stuff he's saying now, and even some stuff, we initially said, oh, he needs to be discipled, he's a new believer. But when you get to a point where you're talking like, I'm the God, you're looking at the God of creation right now. You're looking at, that's what he said in one of these videos. You're talking to the, when you talk like that, and okay, we can say in a charitable way, there's grace, he needs to be discipled. But I also think, I wonder if Kanye is really thinking that I became a Christian so God can do all this stuff through me. And that's what a lot of this was about. And it wasn't, I became a Christian because I'm a sinner who needs a savior. I became, remember when he did Jesus' Walks? You know why he did it, right? Because he said, they told him you can't say Jesus on the radio. So Kanye said, well, I'm going to say Jesus on the radio and get it on the radio, and then he proved it, right? I wonder if, and this is not a conclusion.
He was trying to make Christianity cool.
I wonder if he felt like God needed him, was going to use him to make all these people Christians and make it about what he, Kanye, can do for God, right? And I think it blew up in his face when God said, okay, you're going to lose your wife because she's not going to be a believer. She's not going to go for all these standards that you're putting on how she dresses and all of it.
By the way, which he keeps claiming she's Christian.
Yeah.
Right? Like in real time.
She keeps claiming that.
He keeps claiming she is Christian.
Yeah.
Because she seemed to be, going to VOO Church and kind of hanging out with some of that circle earlier before he had any type of profession. Because remember, Rich Wilkinson married them.
Right.
And he kind of feels a way about that now, probably, right? Sure. And so he keeps saying Kim's a Christian. She keeps posing, slutty. And when they were married, he had her like not posing like that, not wearing that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, man, ouch. That's an interesting analysis.
So for me, like even Kanye saying that, like that's not credible to me because I'm concerned if Kanye is genuinely a Christian. So when your wife is openly having sex with a dude while you're still married, I'm not willing to go to the mattresses for her saying she's a believer, right? So I wonder if, because this is what you're seeing happen. So is it medication? Maybe. But I wonder if what Kanye is experiencing is, man, God didn't use me, do what I thought he was going to do. Yeah. And now he's just coming at everyone. So now he just is like going to go back to, well, I can still affect the world. I can change the world. But then he puts it on, God is doing this. And the reason why I'm saying this, why I think it could be more satanic than from God is, we have to remember, like, I think I told you this, in Acts 16, Paul and Barnabas are walking through this area, right? And this girl who has a demon in her, who practices fortune telling, making money for these two guys, she's following Paul and Barnabas saying, these men are here to proclaim to you about Jesus, the Most High God, right?
This is Acts
16.
I'm gonna pull this up because this is such a fascinating scripture.
This is really crazy when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So this girl is following them saying, these men are here to proclaim to you the Son of the Most High God and all of that, right? And then it says, Paul, after many days, I think it's after many days, it said Paul got annoyed and he cast the demon out of this girl, right?
Hold on, we got to read this story. We got to read this story. Yo, this is such an ill story. So this is Acts 16:16. Once we were going to the palace of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. This is not a spirit from God. Yeah. She earned a great deal of money.
Predicted the future too. That's a whole different conversation. Because we always think the devil and them don't know the future. That's an interesting statement.
That is a very interesting statement. Was she getting it right? That would be my question. Like, she's predicting the future. Was she getting the future?
She was making money for them, so she had to be right.
Okay. So she was out here. I mean, this would be like running a gambling situation now if you could get the numbers right. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. She followed Paul and the rest of us, shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who are telling you the way to be saved. So she's saying these guys have the how to be saved. She kept this up for many days. Finally, Paul became so annoyed that he turned around and said to the spirit, "In the name of Jesus, I command you to come out of her." At that moment, the spirit learned. Yo, why did it take a couple days for Paul to cast the demon out? Was it because he didn't know initially that she had the demon? Like, what is going on here?
I don't think Paul cared initially.
Yeah.
But then I think it was a distraction. Now, let me tell you what I think, and I can't prove this because the Bible doesn't say it. Here's why I think Paul got annoyed. Because he knew that it was a demon, and because they were doing what the demon was saying, then when Paul and them left, that girl would have another level of credibility because they were doing exactly what the demon was saying through her. So then it gives her even more credibility to continue to deceive people.
Let me read the rest of this. 19. When her owners realized that their hope of making money was gone, so she had owners.
Yeah.
Jeez. Making money was gone. They seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to face the authorities. They brought them before the magistrates and said, "These men are Jews and are throwing our city in an uproar." So they lied on them, basically, by advocating customs unlawful for us Romans to accept or practice. And then later on, and then Paul kind of pulls his "I'm actually a Roman" card.
Right. Well, because they get attacked. So here's my point in bringing this story.
I just had to read that story because it was so ill.
That story is crazy.
That's such an ill story,
and there's so many things about that story. But let's just be honest. Like, let's be honest for a moment. Let's have an honest moment on Ruslan, right? Let's have an honest moment. Many of us today would see that girl doing that, and we'd think, man, she's bold for Jesus. We might even go up and encourage her for her boldness. So this is a girl who has a demon that is proclaiming the truth.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And people, and this is what Paul, and then she's doing it for many days. So people who have the demons can still, one, know the future and predict the future, right? Two, that's a different conversation. But two, they can proclaim truths about God. I mean, every time a demon interacted with Jesus, what did they say? We know who you are, Son of the Most High God. They always identified who he was, right? So this demon, I think most people probably thought, man, what a godly girl. Like, she's just walking around boldly proclaiming what Paul and them are doing. And this girl has a demon.
And she's influential.
Yeah, she's influential.
And she's influential.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like she's promoting them.
What if Kanye is influential and is saying things that may be true about what God says, but it's not really from the Spirit of God?
Get Isaiah Saldivar on the phone.
You know what I'm saying?
Get Pagani on the phone.
That's my concern, is that God can, like a dude like him with that much influence can dupe a lot of us because he made a profession of faith and says some things that are true that we just think like we excuse everything else.
What would the steps be for Kanye to have deliverance?
You know, that would be more a question for him.
Yeah.
In terms of how he would do that.
Pagani.
Yeah, because, you know, I think that stuff can be real. I don't think it's, that's a whole different conversation for me.
Well, to be fair, in my interview with Pagani, like he said that it's not always real. It's people coming back. It's people faking it.
Yeah.
They're sober about that.
Yeah.
All of them are sober about that.
Yeah.
So they're sober about the fact that a lot of times when this stuff happens,
it's not genuine.
People coming back, it's cosplay for some of these folks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And so, some of it is just like, look, man, you don't have a demon. You just don't want to obey God for real.
Yeah, and he says that they won't. I think he said he won't do deliverance more than like once or twice on somebody. If they keep coming back, he'll tell them no. A lot of times he'll send people to go to a therapist or a counselor and stuff like that. And so
I don't begin with deliverance for Kanye. I begin with, brother, do you have a conviction to honor the Lord? Like, if I were his pastor, here's what I would say. Kanye, let's talk, bro. Okay, do you have a conviction to really honor the Lord with your life? And he would say yes. Okay, where do you see that in your life?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when he would start naming things, I would say, brother, can I share a couple concerns about your conviction? And I'm bringing these up to you because you are invoking the name of God and Jesus into things that I think is actually hurting your witness. And let me give you some clear examples of why. And then I would walk him through what I'm concerned about. I'd see where he is with it, because when you look at James 3:17, it says wisdom from above is open to reason.
Yeah.
It's submissive.
Come on.
It's gentle. It's that. If his reaction is anger, then I think, well, brother, the verse before James 3:17 talks about selfish ambition. And don't say that that's from God when there's selfish ambition.
Yeah.
My concern for Kanye is that there's selfish ambition. Is that a lot of what he does is selfish ambition. It has nothing to do with the Lord, but because he bore some fruit, we will back him until he really embarrasses the faith.
I mean, I think he's right there.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, he's there already.
Embarrassed.
No, he's definitely done that. And I think, look at what that does. So again, as an artist, do I like Kanye? Sure. I like it. I've liked his music. I love the Jesus is King, you know, all that stuff. But I got to be honest here and say, I'm concerned that a lot of what he's doing is not of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And so what fruit of the Spirit, what spirit is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, like the bipolar thing, he says he doesn't have.
Yeah.
Like he's convinced that he doesn't have it. And I don't know the step-by-steps on how to diagnose somebody with bipolar, right? Like, do they do a brain scan? Do they see that your brain's or is it we gonna experiment with a bunch of medication? Like, I don't know the particulars of how you come to the conclusion that someone has bipolar. Like, because it's a brain disease, right? Like, it's a brain thing.
It is, yeah.
So if he's saying, I was misdiagnosed, you know what I mean? But then it seems like he'll get on meds and do well.
Right.
You know, it's confusing. But I think when you're adding this component, here's my concern, is I tend to not jump out the window and say like everything is a demon and stuff like that.
Yeah, me neither. Right.
But when someone has a taste of God and the taste of the truth, and there continues to be patterns or seemingly patterns of unrepentant sin.
Yeah.
Where you smashing random broads, you doing whatever, when Kim's cheating on me, yada, yada, right? When you're on that type of time, I think that then could open you up to something.
Right. 100%.
If you're a new convert, you're in a great spot, you stop taking your meds, and then you're still professing Jesus, but you out here with all these random chicks and you know what I mean? Like, then I go, wait a minute, because now you're unrepentantly flipping, just doing what you want.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a dangerous place to be as a Christian.
That's selfish ambition.
And it said that Simeon blessed God.